Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box. Nice to have you with us. Bill Pucko, along with Tariq Spence and Pat Duffy. Tariq, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Feeling good. I'm not sure what to do now. It's the first week after football, but we'll figure something out.
Pat, what do you got on?
Obviously, the legend Darius Miles Cleveland Cavaliers jersey from 99, 2000, 2001 era. Come on, Tariq, you know this is a sweet jersey with the little blue lines inside the white lines. This is a nice jersey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You always preface that by saying, obviously. You know, is it just me? None of these things are ever obvious to me.
Well, you're not in the loop, man. You're not cool, Bill. You're a cool guy.
All right, well, I'm trying. I'm surrounding myself with cool people. Hey, Tariq, the football season's over. What do we learn from this? So we just put in 6 months. Where are we from where we started, do you think?
Well, I mean, from a COVID standpoint, I mean, they were able to escape. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. The NFL really escaped, basically unscathed. You had a couple different reschedulings that you had to go through. We're not through it all. They were able to learn from their PR, from putting all of the different first responders in the stadium for the Super Bowl, so they understand that PR. They're still continuing the social justice, efforts that they said that they would commit to. So they're doing that. When we're talking about the end of the NFL season, the quarterbacks are really wanting more control over the teams. Well, that's what I find to be interesting about this. A lot of quarterbacks are more vocal, and I'll start with Aaron Rodgers, who is absolutely right when he said, "I need more help offensively." Goes out, wins MVP, goes to the NFC Championship game, loses to Tampa. I mean, you're seeing a lot more quarterbacks, a lot more vocal, and taking a lot more leadership and control over the personnel. That's what I see in the NFL.
I think between Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson now has most recently come out that says, Rodgers to me sounded like a whiner. I just got Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones and a good line.
Thank you. Right? I mean, look, I think your point. To your point, Tariq, it was the opposite because they did nothing to upgrade the offense. They went and drafted a quarterback high in the draft, and he still won MVP and went to the NFC Championship game, right? Like, it wasn't the fact that he needed help. It sounds like he needed a little bit of motivation because when come on, let's be real. He's got a little bit of a drama attitude problem. Oh, yeah. When he gets his Buffont in a little tizzy there, all of a sudden he plays better. Like, maybe that's on you and not on the players that you're playing with.
No, but it's interesting. About Rodgers, though, the one thing I could say is that he was right. Yes, he was upset. He was a little grumpy. He didn't like LaFleur, didn't like the offense. But look at how far they got, and imagine how far they could have gotten had they done the right thing during the draft and beyond that.
Pat, I wanted to ask you, it seemed outdated when people say defense wins championships. You've got that occurring in the NFL. And the same, the NHL, goaltending is more important in the playoffs. Baseball pitching is more important than the power hitting. It's like we get to the postseasons of these sports, and I think the most recent Super Bowl just emphasized the fact that the postseason is almost played with a different set of rules, don't you think?
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that only because they say defense wins championships because one team has to score fewer points, right? Like the Buccaneers scored 30-something points, but if the Chiefs would have scored 30-something plus 1 points, defense wouldn't have won championships. You're going to focus on the defense because you want to watch the high-flying offense get stopped. Like in the NFL's example, the Chiefs got stopped because they're playing with 3 guys that were working at a truck stop on their offensive line before the game because of a bunch of different circumstances, right? And then all of a sudden, this Chiefs defense that was unbelievable against the Bills in the AFC Championship game showed up and laid an egg. I think it's more circumstantial. I think that offense wins it more often than defense does. And, I mean, let's be real. It's probably better for all the sports when it comes to entertainment, right?
Tariq, we've gone this far in the show and haven't mentioned Tom Brady's name. What were your overall impressions of how he made out of all this?
Well, I think when they tell the Tom Brady story, I think they better tell the part of when he gets in the players' faces as well, on top of the fact that he's won his 7th Super Bowl. But that being said, I think Tom Brady was right, too. I think he was right to leave New England. I think he was right to go to Tampa Bay. I think he was right when he walked into Tampa Bay and basically said, "You guys are not prepared to win a championship. Let me show you how to do it." And then he goes out and actually does it.
You take a shot at Tom?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, it's really hard to do what he does when he's put into a situation with the best players in the league every single time he walks out on the field. Hey, tip of the cap to finding the best situation ever for any NFL quarterback everywhere you go, every time. That's really tough. Way to go, buddy.
Well, on the flip side of that, I just wanted to finish this with something that Nick Wright said on Fox Sports. He looked at it, and he was a big Kansas City guy, and he was like, just crushed by the result of the game. He broke down Tom Brady's career into thirds, and he said this guy had 3 Hall of Fame careers. If you take the first third, the second third, and the third, the credentials for each third of his career were Hall of Fame worthy. And he says, as much as he hated to admit it, he says, you're never going to see something like that again.
It's amazing, right? Like he had 3 separate Hall of Fame careers and would have had none of those Hall of Fame careers had Drew Bledsoe's spleen not been exploded by Mo Lewis, right? I mean, let's be real here. It's all circumstantial. It really makes you think how many guys that we never saw take a snap in a meaningful game in the NFL could have had the career that Tom Brady had.
And he's not done. By the way, that could be a third location for a Tom Brady trophy or a Tom Brady statue. Tampa Bay, New England, and Michigan.
We're at the press box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay and Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Time to talk a little Buffalo Bills, Pat. I think the honeymoon season is the real fun season is the one we just had. It gets more serious and maybe a little more difficult, maybe not as much fun for the Buffalo Bills when we look down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's more anxiety as a fan, right? Like the expectations are not definitely there. But that being said, I don't know how much fear I have walking into it based on a track record. Like Bills fans have been cautiously optimistic yet cynical because of the track record of the last 25 years. Yet you look at the last 3, the Bills are going to have to replace a couple of players due to salary cap issues. One of them might be Matt Milano. One of them might be John Feliciano. One of them might be John Brown, a guy who's played a big part in this offense the last couple of years. But Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the rest of the scouts in the front office have shown the last 3 years that when they have a hole to fill, they can go out and they can fill it and they can do it in an economically viable way and they can keep pushing this team forward. Yes, there's anxiety. Yes, I know the expectations may be too high to meet, but if there's a coach GM combo that can do it, I think it's these 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the offseason for the Bills. I mean, now Buffalo might be a destination for a couple of players who are looking to try to get on a championship team. They built this up, like you said, Duffy, going forward, and you've got the quarterback that everybody believes in. Stephon Diggs, I caught a couple of interviews with him. He is glowing over Josh Allen. I mean, he was doing it during the regular season, but now he's putting it on a national level, and I think that's going to attract players, like you said, Duffy, that might be on a 1-year, 2-year deal, make a little bit less so they can contribute to a team that is supposed to go to the Super Bowl. I don't want to give you so much anxiety or Bills fans anxiety, but 10 months from now, there better be a game with the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC Championship and heading to the next Super Bowl.
I look at where the expectations went from the beginning of the year, and I remember we were talking about the schedule being so tough for the Western teams, and that the Bills this year could have been better than they were the year before, wind up 8-8. And they got 13-3. That's setting the bar, I think, Tariq, awfully high for next year. And the fans are going to expect it.
And players will be coming back. Remember, this was a year for a number of players that they opted out. So you're going to have a lot of players coming back, new players coming in, guys transitioning. I think we're seeing a lot of quarterback change over the next couple of weeks. They're still not done with that. There's a lot of different places that quarterbacks can land. So you can see a lot of shuffling. It's better that Buffalo is ready to go and has the cohesion. Remember, they didn't lose an offensive coordinator. They didn't lose a defensive coordinator. They're going to keep the same units going forward. Just a couple tweaks here and there, and you'll be right back in the show again.
I mean, good value pick, Pat. They're 16-1 in Vegas, which is like the 5th best.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. 5th best, it's a good value pick because, I mean, the power rankings I've been looking at from a couple of different publications, I mean, they're listing them right behind Kansas City as far as the 2nd best team in the league. Yeah, 5-1, I'm taking them for a Super Bowl all the way. But, I mean, look, I think Bills fans are also realists, at least the ones that didn't jump on the bandwagon the last couple of years. You're happy to be in the conversation. You know that there's room for this team to grow, and you also know what a juggernaut potentially Kansas City can be. Close the gap, make it happen, make it competitive. I'm happy next season.
Last couple of weeks. You guys have been bandwagoned up for the last couple of weeks. You doubled up on the bandwagon.
Yes, I meant to say weeks. Thank you, Tariq, for correcting me, and all you bandwagon fans. I'm sorry.
Are you buying a little bit, though, that the honeymoon, as far as the fans with this team now, is over? The easy part is done, is that they've established themselves, and now to stay there is really the tough part?
I mean, yeah, it's possible when it comes to wins and losses, but I think what this team has going for it is everyone on that team is likable, right? You look back to the Bills Super Bowl teams of the early 90s. They were the bickering Bills. You had Andre Reed calling radio shows on the way home from games, legitimately complaining about what his players were doing, the guys around him. Josh Allen's lovable. Stephon Diggs, who Tariq talked about it, they love each other. The whole offensive line are best friends. The defense is always smiling. Like, I think even if expectations aren't met on the field, like, these guys are either your best friends or your kids or your favorite uncle. It's hard not to like them.
We're at the Rochester Press Box. Like It or Not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
All of these things show Josh Allen has a strive for greatness inside of him.
Falcon Around with Carl Falk. New episodes every Tuesday on Rock Sports Now.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. This segment, Like It or Not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law Firm. With years of experience defending the accused, don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Law Firm today. It's Like It or Not. Pat, I'll go to you first. Like it or not, Major League Baseball changing the baseball and deadening it so it's not going as far.
I don't like it because it makes the game less entertaining. But, Bill, maybe you can help me out with this because you're like the biggest baseball nerd I know. Well, no, I mean, you're a big baseball nerd. So here's what I don't get. Because I see this story, and for the last couple of years, baseball nerds, oh, ball's too live. What are you doing? You're ruining the game. It's okay. So then Major League Baseball stands up to make a change to the ball. And I read yesterday, bunch of baseball nerds, oh, what are you doing? Change the baseball. Change the way. Players have already adjusted. Managers have adjusted to the way it's got. You're never happy. Bill, you guys are never, ever happy. Like, what other thing could they do consistently throughout the league to make it so there's more action inside the field of play where you wouldn't flip out immediately?
Well, first, I don't sound like that. And second, I think this is a good move. I think, the whole thing about inaction as far as baseball goes with too many strikeouts and, too many home runs and no real action on the field. If you can bring that back the other way, it's probably a good thing. I'd be a little concerned about the players' ability to react to this, and there might be a pretty ugly transition period, I think, Tariq.
Plus, let me just say this about baseball, and I love it, but they have multiple eras. I've never seen a sport that has so many different eras. There's the steroid era. There's the greenie era. There's the mound that's too high. There's the mound that's too low. There's the juice ball era. There's the segregated era. There's every era of sport goes through baseball. So I don't understand how baseball fans get so upset of different eras changing. You're always changing the game because you're trying to appease and get the most eyeballs onto your sport.
Which goes back to the basics of the sport. I don't get it why. I mean, hockey hasn't changed. Basketball is mostly the same. Yeah, but so subtly. When you look at the four major sports, baseball's always tinkering to a greater extent than the other ones, I think.
Well, but here's the problem, and it all comes back to, again, no offense, Bill, you baseball nerds, because the baseball nerds argue don't change anything because we don't want to make the sport gimmicky. And then the stuff you do because you think it'll fix it legitimately makes baseball so gimmicky that we have to break it down into different eras. So I think from now on, all baseball nerds should not be allowed to comment on baseball. Let them do what they're going to do. And let's just see what happens. What's the worst that happens?
And what does it I sound like again?
The ball's too live. Ball's too live.
Hey, Tariq, like it or not, the New York Knicks got Derrick Rose back.
Not only do I like it, I like him working with Thibodeau, and I like the fact that one of the first things he says, he wants to mentor the younger players in the league. Now, under Thibodeau and Rose, Rose, I believe, won MVP, the youngest player to win it in the league. So there's some good chemistry there. It's the third time that Thibodeau and Rose have worked together. I think Rose is at a different point in his life at the NBA. I don't think he knows he's the superstar, but he can still hoop, like he said. I love it. Just going forward, as far as the basketball knowledge goes of everything Derrick Rose is, I think they'll be exciting. I'm happy for it. And plus, you didn't lose too much to get him. Pat,
is this an indication that the Knicks are taking themselves seriously finally?
No, because they're bringing back a guy who they already had one run with where it was like, okay. It seems like one of those moves for the Knicks where I want to bring in someone that has a name so folks will get excited about it. Let's see where it goes. If it's successful, maybe we build on top of it. But, I mean, let's be real. In the Eastern Conference, for the next couple of years, what can the Knicks do to separate themselves from any of the teams that are starting to look dominant?
I understand where you're getting. Exciting, yes. For this year, no. But like the Bills, they'll build for next year, and they'll be a little bit better. That's all that matters.
Lot of building for next year at Madison Square Garden. A lot.
Yeah, no.
Like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. Pat.
Folks from the NBA and USA Basketball are petitioning the powers that be, that control Olympic basketball, to try and get them to allow extra players that aren't on the USA Olympic basketball roster on after the Olympics start, because the NBA finals are going to bleed a couple of days into the start of the Olympics, where basketball will be featured in the summer. And that's an interesting argument, considering that they're even thinking about having the Olympics in Tokyo this year. If I am an NBA player, now look, I love international competition. I would die to have NHL players back in the Olympics again. I watch sports I don't even care about because I want to wave my American flag and feel good about being an American. And I love international basketball. That being said, if I'm an NBA player, I spent half of the year last season in a bubble. I spent this year, you saw with the NBA All-Star break, if it happens, players aren't allowed to leave the country because of fear of them picking up the virus. So they're stuck there. So when that's all said and done, I'm going to put my behind on a plane and fly all the way to Asia to play. Like, now it's okay all of a sudden after you lock me down forever? They're crazy for having the Olympics. They're even crazier as USA Basketball for thinking about even considering doing something like this. I will not blame a single NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball player for not wanting to participate in any international tournaments until all this stuff is done.
All right, so we're seeing a lot of popularity, obviously, with sports betting and with fantasy football growing. I just want to make sure that fans understand, get ready to understand that Major League athletes are going to need personal days. Listen, I'm proud of Major League Baseball players that have come out recently and basically said to themselves, I've got a history with mental health and issues. NBA players have done it. Now NBA coaches are taking personal time and dealing with mental health. So the same old line that used to be, hey, you make a lot of money, go out there and play, are over with. Those days are done. Or I'm not 100% and I go to work. Those days are over with as well. This isn't about really betting. I'm actually for betting for games and players' performance. But the rules of engagement for betting on these games and betting on these players are a little bit different now. It's okay to own them in the fantasy world, but in the real world, the issues that they're dealing with have more to do than the multi-million-dollar checks that they have. I'm not here to judge anybody for whatever they're dealing with personally or with mental health. But just so you know, going forward, if you're going to bet on games, there's a new rule to understand. You don't own these players. You bet at your own risk. They play or they don't play. But now you know going forward, it's not on them, it's on you.
We've now completed the first professional sports championship cycle of the COVID era. Another era for you, Tariq. To figure out how we did, it's important to remember how we got here. No NFL OTAs or preseason games. There was the NBA bubble, NHL pods, baseball schedules being arranged on the fly, no travel between the United States and Canada, shortened seasons, extended playoffs, scandals of the Cleveland baseball players slipping into banned restaurants, Denver playing without quarterbacks, an NBA player hitting a strip club for chicken wings on his way back from a funeral, my personal favorite, and a whole bunch of athletes contracting, but not coincidentally recovering from the virus. A long and winding road for sure. Tampa Bay Super Bowl win over Kansas City is not the end of it, but it is a good place to check our progress. Who would argue that the Buccaneers weren't deserving champions, or that the Chiefs didn't deserve to be there, or that Tampa Bay wasn't also the best team in the National Hockey League, or that the Los Angeles Lakers and Dodgers weren't the best in their sports? The excuses available to these teams weren't necessary. Surrounded by disarray, the cream rose to the top in every case. And as fans of the games, we reaped the benefits. We were distracted in a good way, in a necessary way. I don't see how this could have gone any better. That's Unfinished Business, and that is our program. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.